think you should get like Ryobi as a sponsor now, since that was in the background.
I know. The funny thing is I think these microphones work really well,
Yeah.
and it might not have heard any of it.
Wow.
Like I don't know if you. I did one in a convertible,
Mm-hmm.
and you could not hear anything. And I only used one mic and put it in between us in the convertible, and you heard us perfectly.
Really?
Yeah, it was
I
pretty
I
neat.
just thought it was because Ryobi is such a high quality, low noise machine with the same power output that you might find in competing machines, but with less noise.
I will make sure that goes in there. That was good. That was good. That was good. All right. All right. We are back. We had a little cut there. The wonderful neighbor came over to say hello, was blowing off their yard. This is an experiment doing this outside.
Mm.
And I guess now we see why people don't record podcasts outdoors. So in their front yard in the
It
neighborhood.
makes it more exciting.
It does. It does. So I'd like to get a little bit of that. We'll leave a little bit of that in the video, which you probably have seen now that you're listening here. But we probably cut
Me or
out some
them?
them.
Oh, okay.
They.
Yeah,
You saw it
I
all.
haven't, I mean, I was here,
You
but
were
I haven't
here.
seen it.
Yeah. So all right. So we were talking about you graduated from college, you went and you got a job, and you talked to your dad, and you said, "Dad, I think I can make this business better. You're really old. It's time for you to go." Is that how it
I
went?
don't know that it went exactly like that. I think it was more so I realized that I wanted to do business and I knew I already had my foot in the door somewhere.
Okay.
And that was a great place to start. I like complex businesses. I like smaller businesses that have growth opportunity. I'd also say, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not somebody who wants to go start a business. That's not my shtick. I like to take something that already exists and grow it. And so I don't know if I knew all of that clearly at the time, but I
Yeah.
think I intuited a lot of those
So have you
different
ever
things.
considered like venture capitalists? So my brother worked as the CEO for a venture capitalist company.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you remember when I had the Stack, which was the battery charger, and my brother went through like 4 or 5 businesses. I was like, why do you keep getting fired? Like I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Finally, he told me, no, this company buys
Yep.
these small businesses that are failing
Mm-hmm.
that they think can turn around. Mike turns into the CEO. He runs it, builds it back up, and then they flip it
Yeah.
and sell it to somebody. So then he'd be the CEO of another company.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny because I was like, man, you're not very good at this job.
That's
But
amazing.
evidently he was pretty good because he was able to build these businesses and sell them off. So was that a hard sell to your dad, or was it like he was like, heck yeah, I've been wanting you to come back and do this?
I think he thought it was kind of exciting because he really didn't expect me to come back either. And while my dad and I had a great relationship, we didn't have a lot in common when I was growing up. He was a big sports guy. He still is a big sports guy. He did sports in high school and college. He likes to watch sports. I famously know nothing about sports. You know this about me. So, it turns out we really had a lot to talk about on the business side. And so we grew a lot closer because of that experience.
That's awesome.
But to kind of pull that thread that you just mentioned on venture capital, when we were acquired in 2018, we were actually looking for private equity, which is very similar to venture capital. And we got strategically acquired in the process. What I would say for me, and a decision that I made probably especially after we were acquired, is do I go be that guy who runs different businesses in different places? Or do I do something different? Because a lot of what I do, I think could be successful in other businesses, but I've got a rental shtick. I have a persona in the industry. I've developed a lot of relationships, a big network. And so, I think that I can take this same stuff that I would apply to other businesses, but if I can apply it to rental businesses, I can do it a little bit faster, a
Yeah.
little bit easier.
Yeah.
I can skip steps in a different
Yeah.
way.
Stick to what you know.
And so I made that conscious decision actually to say, no, I want to stick in rental. And I kind of dabbled outside of that. I dabbled outside of that in still staying in the rental industry, but I moved to rental software after the
Oh, that's a
acquisition of the
big
company.
jump, Josh.
But it's
Woo.
still I was running a software business, not
Yeah.
a rental, not an equipment business. And then I jumped to the association world, still in rental. It was the rental association. Now I'm back on what I would consider the operator or operations side of the business, which all of those experiences were wonderful and taught me a ton. But this is, I think, my favorite side of the business.
Okay. So I think I kind of want to talk about some of the short things that from the outside, and I don't know your thought process. Maybe they weren't as brilliant as I see them. I just see you as one of the wisest people I know. And obviously, most of us know there's a difference between being smart and being wise. And there are a few people that I know that just make wise decisions, and they make them often. And it's almost like the ability for to take risk, and that's something I want to talk about later. Is how do
Hmm.
you decide when to take a risk and when? And that started with you building that home. And I don't know if you were just young or you bought swampland basically. If I remember correctly, there was something to deal with
I
the
didn't know it was
property.
swampland at the time when we fell in love with it, but yes, it did end up having quite the floodplain and wetlands on it.
Yes, but the biggest thing is that you did this in what, 2008, 2009. So before anyone was buying a house, like everyone was sitting on their heels. Everyone. No one was buying, no one was building, and you were, I'm gonna go buy some land. And I'm sitting there in my head going, this dude is crazy. Like, who buys land? And then it was swamp, and then you push through, and then you got the construction loan and you built this home. And I don't know why at the time I thought that was so amazing. I think it's just because no one was doing that. There were no builders back then. No
Hmm.
one was building houses. They had found new jobs. Um, there was nothing going on, and you decided, you jumped in before anybody else, and within 12 months the entire real estate market turned around. And I feel like that is the compliment. That's when I talk about being wise. Is so many people wait for the sun to rise before they'll come outside.
Hmm.
Some people wait for they wait for the news to tell them that today's the day to buy crypto. But the reality is, most of the time, by the time news tells you, it's too late if you're
Hmm.
really trying to get ahead in the market. So, I mean, do you remember that thought process, or what? Were you scared at all? Was it? I don't know. You were young. You were in your early 20s, right, or mid 20s?
So yeah, in 2020, I would have been um, 40. I'm sorry, 2020. 2010, I would have been 30.
So you were
Um,
still in your 20s.
so I was, well, I think that we actually did that in 2010, 2011,
Okay.
and I think we finished it in 2012. But I think we may have started the process maybe late 2009, 2010.
Okay.
So I think your memory gives me a little bit more credit than I deserve. And I would also say it wasn't as much of a conscious decision, at the time as it may seem looking back at it. At the time, it was almost a little bit of a fear decision. I mean, we'd just gone through 2008, 2009, where, the world had collapsed in our business and our industry. And I had this drive to take a little bit more control over certain things in my life and de-risk or de-leverage things.
Yeah.
And so to me, living in a standard neighborhood wasn't scratching some of that itch. And, on the same token, being in the equipment and construction industry, I had people who owed me favors or owed me money. And I was able to utilize some of that to help bring the costs down. The business was slow. One of the themes that I think will probably bring up is that I like a challenge, and I like new. And so trying something different of like building this thing with chickens and, more of a, like, not quite a farm. I told some people in the Midwest a farm, and I think
That's
something's
a
crawling
big
on me.
green spider on your beard.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, he's
Um,
gone now. Are green spiders okay?
well, I'm not dead
We're
yet,
gonna
so
find out.
I didn't feel it bite me. I told some people in the Midwest that it was a farm, and they kind of laughed at me. But to do something different, be able to know where some of my food comes from, and provide some of that. We had solar panels, we had geothermal HVC to have something more
That's what it
sustainable.
was. See that
And
all of that. I remember because we got a special appraisal
mhm,
where they
it was so
increased the
hard.
value. And I've been lending for 10, 12 years at that point. I didn't know anything about the geothermal adjustments that an appraiser could make.
Yeah.
Like, you wrote a letter explaining all of it, and I gave it to the appraiser. There's
Is
that
it coming
spider.
back after me?
No, he's leaving now.
That's all right.
And the appraiser made adjustments strictly on the fact that you had geothermal. Like, he increased the value by, I don't remember if it was 10% or whatever that number was, but
Yeah.
it was amazing. I do not think it's just a memory of a highlight, because I remember Don Scarborough listed your house for sale. So it wasn't
Hmm.
just the build. I'm like, Josh, you bought this land and you're about to start. You ain't even sold your house, and no one's buying houses right now. Like,
Hmm.
no, your house is not going to sell. Like, I had all these negative thoughts, and hopefully I never mentioned them. But I'm just like, Wow. And then it did. Don sold it and you got a strong offer and it just all fell in place. Like I thought it would just be a long process and it wasn't.
It took
It
about 2 years. And I lived in my parents' basement. We
yes, I
lived in my
remember
parents'
that
basement
did.
for
Yes.
probably a year and a half, and we'd
Yes.
originally thought 6 months. But I would also say that I had a really great team around me, and that's one of the things that I often try and do is surround myself with experts, educate myself enough to understand and ask the right questions, but then lean on them for support.
Yeah.
So even talking about the appraisal and stuff that you're talking about, everything there is to know about the mortgage business and how to do that and what needs to be done. So I could very often lean on you to be like, well, this doesn't seem to match what I need. What are my options? And I'm going to bet you're probably the person that said, do the research and write a letter and show the proof of what it is.
Yeah. Because I mean, I do remember you telling me that you had, I don't remember the process. I remember you mentioning that this should increase the value, or maybe we got the appraisal and you like, the appraiser didn't even mention this.
Yeah.
And then I looked into it and I was like, wow, they will actually do that. And then I had you write the letter and that was just really cool. Like a lot of things
Yeah.
I was like,
And then Dawn helped us through the wetland issues because her brother's a site contractor and he'd had experience with that. And so, she knew the right people to call and to figure it out. And we had an amazing piece of property that was, 5 minutes from work.
yeah,
So we got a place, realistically that worked really well for that house at a value that you wouldn't really be able to get property around
right.
there for. So it all worked out. It just took a little bit of effort and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So what was it called? Nickel Heights?
That was the name that we ended up giving it, and it was named after my grandfather on my dad's side had a road named after them and a big piece of property that they had sold. It was called Nickel
Did you
Heights.
have a sign over the entryway or?
No, Don did make us a really fancy shovel that said Nickel Heights
I
on
was
it.
wondering if there was anything on the property that if it was still there, but if you
I
didn't
don't
have
think
that,
so. I don't think so.
man, we need to go find them and tell them the story. Do you ever drive by and see it?
It's been a while, but I know the people who live there.
Oh, you do?
We ended up selling it to friends, the Caspers, and they use it so much better than we ever would have.
Really?
It's amazing. I think they have cows. I know they have goats. The daughter milks the goats and makes all kinds of stuff from it. Like
Ah,
they took what we did and they took it to the next level.
that's perfect.
And it's been amazing for them.
Nice. All right. So the next step is, so that was in between. Y'all ended up selling the business,
Hmm.
and then, and I don't remember the time frame. It seems like there was a little bit of a gap, but then you end up. What took you to England? You ended up picking your family up,
Hmm.
young children, and moving to London to be like a trade show expert, or did it have something to do with trade
It was
shows?
rental
Or
software.
that was the
That
software
was rental
stuff.
software, yeah. And I hope you're seeing the theme there of crazy extreme changes.
Yes, that's
So and I think that's something that myself and my wife are very comfortable with and really enjoy, and makes us good at that. But it was actually a really short period of time, and we were just talking about this the other day with our kids. We were looking for, again, private equity, venture capital, something like that, to continue to grow the business throughout 2017. And it wasn't until Christmas Eve of 2017 that we got the information from our broker that we really didn't get the kind of offers that we were looking for to bring private equity on, which wouldn't have been honoring to my parents because they still owned most of the business and this was their retirement that we were playing with. That was one of the reasons we were looking at other sources of equity. And that the strategic buyer, the second largest rental company in the world, was going to be the right fit for us. So until December, what is that, 24th, I could have told you what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden, I had no idea. And I sat down with the team and we made the decision together to sell to that company. And they were wonderful. 2 months later, we opened as that company on February 14th on Valentine's Day. And so I went
Sunbelt,
from,
right? Is that-
yeah, I went from knowing what I,
Hero, come here. Again, my dog almost got hit by a car. We're recording outside. Okay, so
that's right.
Sunbelt bought it.
So I went from knowing what I was going to do with the rest of my life to 2 months later being mid-level management. And again, they were very kind to me. But one of the unique things that happened in that process was I got job offers for the first time in my life.
Oh, that's
You
always
know,
nice.
one of the weird things about working for yourself is nobody ever offers you a job. You're not going to quit yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I had job offers for the first time, and one of them was to go to New York, and one of them was to go to England. And so I called up the acquirer and said, "Hey, listen, you know, you guys have been so kind, so good to my team. I want to honor the investment that you've made here, but these are incredible opportunities. Can I pursue these?" And they said yes. They were very cool about it. And we worked out a plan to transition out and ended up taking and getting the job to move to England. I think I came home and my wife was saying this just the other day and saying, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to move to England. Do you want to go?" And within 24 hours, we were like, "Sure, let's do it." And then we told the kids and got their buy-in. They were like 6 and 8 at the time, 7 and 9 when we moved. And I'd never been to England before in my life. My wife had gone once in high school. I'd been to Europe once on a
That's
cruise, which doesn't really
insane.
count. But we were ready to go. And
Like,
it
how do
was,
you know that you're going to be successful in another country? You don't know the culture or what it takes. That's just such a,
I didn't know, but that's the way that I'm wired. I like novelty. I like change. I'm comfortable with that. I really enjoy a challenge. And, you know, I'd found that I could be a strong leader in, you know, South Atlanta or Metro Atlanta. But to be able to challenge that in a related field, now in software with people who still speak English, but a different culture,
uh,
just sounded incredibly exciting. And my wife and kids spoke a little bit of French, and we could drive to Paris in 2.5 hours from our house there. And
wow.
you know, now we can drive to Alabama, right? Nothing wrong
Same
with
thing.
Alabama. But it was just an incredibly unique challenge that is the kind of experience that I really enjoy and
So
wanted to
what
have.
was the same there that is here? And not business related.
People.
What
People are the same.
really?
Everybody wants to be appreciated and validated. Everywhere I went in the country, or
Well, not the
everywhere,
French people. They're different.
they do. Everybody, everywhere I went in the world, and in that particular role, I managed Europe, South Africa, Australia, all of the global businesses, and so I got to work with people across the world consistently. Everybody wants to be appreciated and validated.
Yeah.
How that plays out and how you do that, that does vary culture to culture, but everybody wants that on some level. And
Yeah.
if you start there and work from that, then you know magic happens. But if you come in with your preconceived notions of what's going to work or how they want to be appreciated and validated, that's when you know it gets really difficult.
Yeah. Well, that gets into the leadership, and that's part two of our podcast. So let's put that on the shelf.
I'll
Let's
put it
talk
on the
about the
back burner.
hamburgers and the French fries. That's what I want
Okay,
to know. How was that the same, or what was
hamburgers and French fries.
like? I don't know. Do people stay up at the same time, or like, here I feel like it's a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. life
Mm-hmm.
in the United States, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's just me, all I've known. But is that different? Like you hear about Spain where they don't eat dinner till 9 o'clock and
Right.
they stay up later.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
what is that like in England?
Um, yeah, every place has its benefits and drawbacks, right? And you know, the England communities were very interesting. Everything was walkable, but they did take a different outlook on what was important to them, whether it be space or property. You know, their mindset of you know needing an acre and a half, I think, would be crazy to them. You
Yeah,
know, old to them is hundreds of years old, whereas
yeah,
you know 100 years old is a lot to us. They used to laugh at me when we would drive to Paris or somewhere because like driving over 100 miles is crazy to them,
yes, I've heard that
where over
before.
100 years is crazy to us. You know, so all of those things, the way that they, you know, the way that they get personal or don't get personal, the hierarchy is all kind of very different over there. They really appreciate their holidays and vacation. Like I remember I was working with a attorney or solicitor over there, and I had a question for them, and I reached out, and their voicemail said, "I'm going to be gone on holiday for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I'll contact you when I'm back."
uh,
Like this is an attorney,
yeah,
you know, and they're just, but it works because everybody operates
everybody
that
does it.
that same way. And
That's the same
so,
with Australian culture. I remember when I went there, the it wasn't just the people, like the company, the entire company shut down. In my mind, I want to say it was for 2 weeks, and then a lot of people would tag a week on,
mm-hmm,
and they would be off for 3 full weeks over that
mm-hmm,
Christmas New Year's break.
yeah,
And I just was astounded. I was like, "What do you mean that the whole company
yeah,
is just closed?"
yeah,
Like that's, I thought COVID was the greatest thing. I wish that somehow I don't wish another COVID because that was ridiculous.
Sure.
But I wish that somehow we could figure out a way to shut our whole world down for a week every year.
Yeah.
Like the fact that my kids stayed home and we didn't go anywhere. We cooked every meal at home. We didn't go to a ball game. We just did not get in the car. We didn't do anything. And I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
We took walks. We just were around each other.
It's
It
so
was pretty
true.
awesome.
It's so true.
So,
The funniest thing I'll say though that happened over there, for I guess first, if anybody's ever thinking about transitioning countries and you have the opportunity, I would say jump at it, because the
100%.
learning and opportunity you get from that is amazing. Google's amazing. It's the easy things you think that are going to be hard or easy, and the things that you think are going to be easy tend to be hard. So for example, you know, we moved over there and we had a lot of what I would call trash. From, you know, we had Amazon ship a bunch of stuff. We had everything kind of arrive at the house. When we got there, we found the house online. So we were able to do so much digitally, but then we had to do something with all the boxes in the trash. And so I'm trying to Google where to take my trash, and I'm trying to ask people where to take my trash. I cannot figure out where to take trash. And so finally I figure out, I'm using the wrong word. You can't find out where to take trash because there is no trash. It's rubbish. And so
Oh,
then I'm figuring out where to take my rubbish. And then I finally, you know, one of my coworkers teaches me that I need to take it to the tip. That's the dump. There's no dump. So Googling dump doesn't help you. So you take it to the tip. So we show up at the tip and you need a permit from your town council. I don't know what a town council is. I don't know where a town council is. So the terminology kind of really
yeah.
tripped you up.
So AI would help now because that's what I love. People ask, you know, my kids like, what is the difference between just Googling? And to me, Google takes you to a site that you may be able to find the answer.
Yeah,
Where I use ChatGPT, it goes through all the sites and
totally.
typically gives me the answer that I'm looking for. And I think that's why, you know, they make fun of the older generation that we use it as Google, but it's much faster. It finds a lot of my
It
answers
does. It does. And it would
for me.
probably have adapted that terminology better than
Right.
Google would have.
It would have probably said, "Hey, Josh, they don't call it trash here; they
Yes.
call it rubbish."
Yes.
So,
The other thing I thought was hilarious was the weather. You know, people complain about the weather in England all the time. It's like a pastime. And for you and me, if we go over there, when they say it rains every day, their rain doesn't require an umbrella. It's like a light
a
mist.
mist. Yeah.
It's like a comfortable temperature, like 70% of the year. It's like, you know, you got a Jeep over there. It's like top-down weather, like
Yeah.
70% of the year to us. It is amazing. And they complain like it rains every day. And then I remember one day distinctly when I was in the office and it was raining. It wasn't pouring. It wasn't thunderstorming. I heard thunder once while I was there. It wasn't thunderstorming. It was just what we would call rain. And the office was ready to shut down. It was a named storm. They were saying, be careful on the way home. Like, you needed an umbrella. I'm like, guys, I understand you're not used to it. We call this rain. This isn't a
Yeah.
downpour. This isn't a bad storm. This is just like, this is what rain seems like.
So that's how the Yankees look at us in Georgia when it snows.
It is
'Cause we're
absolutely
like,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
You know, I've been to Seattle 3 times. It's not rained one time I was there.
Fair
They
enough.
say Seattle rains, you know, all the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, maybe I just got lucky. So then you moved back,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember. I guess you lived here for a little while, but you were still deciding whether you were going to live or maybe you were still gone, but you were trying to decide whether you were going to live in Georgia, or was it somewhere in the West Coast, or you had decisions. And then when you came back, you were deciding north side versus south side.
Well, I think we did most of that while we were still over there. So we left England in the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And then while our stuff was coming over on a boat, which takes multiple weeks.
So you brought COVID over
I,
here.
I did not, but I was in Italy in February of 2020. So,
Now we know.
and I do remember being in the airport towards the end of that trip because it was like an 8-week trip for us, and people starting to wear masks and then questioning people from like China and stuff. And it was very strange. We landed in Orlando at the end of February in 2020. So that was weird. But by that point, we already knew where we were going to live. So we started the process at the end of December, beginning of January. We ended up putting a offer with a builder in Trilith. But during that process, we were trying to figure out where to live. You know, and you know, in my personal style, I had a matrix of all the different things that might matter, like cost of living, proximity to work, proximity to friends, family, and all that kind of stuff. And Atlanta just checked a lot of boxes. And then we found Trilith, which reminded us a lot of the communities that we enjoyed in England,